Good evening, it's Lightbrite back for Chapter 12. In Chapter 11, I do believe I thought one of the matters of question that came from our over-the-line telephone call was uncalled for, and I kind of wanted to know if that kind of thing had happened to anyone else out there. However, I have been fighting for a so exceptional clause for my husband since 2003. This is the meaning of the so exceptional clause. The following is a list of criteria that must be considered under Section 23.3 and 3.1. Each of these criteria must be satisfied in order for a worker to be assessed under 23.3. The occupation at the time of the injury requires specific skills which are essential to that occupation or to an occupation of a similar type or nature. So you have to have a certain skill. That's what they're saying. And the second one is, as a result of the compensatable disability, the worker is no longer able to perform the essential skills needed to continue in the occupation at the time of injury or in an occupation of a similar type or nature. Now, both those ones, my husband was a tree faller. He had no transferable skills. None. Number 3, and third and final criteria that has to be met to fall under the so exceptional heading. The effect of the compensatable disability is that the worker is unable to work in his or her occupation or in an occupation of a similar type or nature, or to adapt to another suitable occupation without incurring a significant loss of earnings. So in other words, my husband fit into that one too. Even if they told him to get to work and, you know, he'd be one of them, supersize your fries with that, sir. He would be losing too much money and they would have to pay him an LOE anyway. He fit that criteria right from the beginning, and I fought for that. I fought for that because I truly believed that's what he was. And it took me 6 years. Why? Because they really didn't want to accept the fact that he had a traumatic brain injury. And, you know, even though it went this long, at least I know that Jamie did challenge his brain. And it isn't his fault. If we wouldn't have done it that way, never mind it being a catch-22 system all the way through. Does somebody else agree with me there? Have you found yourself in the predicament where it's a lot of catch-22s? And the employees of WCB know that and laugh when it's brought to their attention? I don't understand why they have so much power. And when did we give it to them? That's so hard for me to believe. Like, they lie. Like, here's one. My husband did a state training. After the first year, he had to work during the summer in an automotive shop, sweeping floors or whatever they told him to do for the summer, until he went back the following year for second semester or second season. Then after he did that, and then he had to leave that employment, and he went back to state for that last semesters. And when he came out, he got another job in a different place, and that didn't pan out. So then he went to another job, and that didn't pan out. So he went to another job, and that was the last job. because he had come to the realization that he wasn't going to be passing his final examinations to be a mechanic. And each employer had employees that noticed something was wrong with Jamie. It turns out that I had Jamie go in one day to the last employer with my trusty tape recorder, one that Christina Forbes has there. They're only about 19 bucks and they do work rather well. You can even get this kind of a mic that you clip onto your shirt. Clip it onto your shirt. You can go in there and have all you want. See, the rule of a microphone, of a recorder is, if it's just you and somebody else, unless you tell them that they're being recorded, it's inadmissible. But if it's you, someone else, and one other person, then you don't even have to tell them they're being recorded because there is actually 3 people there. Isn't that something good to know? Anyways, the last employer that my husband had, I gave him this little thing and sent him in there. And we kind of tape recorded his firing. Yep. They weren't too nice to Jamie, you know. They belittled him. They told him he was stupid. They said, "What's wrong with you? You can't remember anything. We're telling you things over and over and over. We're getting sick of repeating this." That was on every single one of them. Now you might say, well, how did he get these jobs? Well, I tell you what, you guys. I would go in and bargain a deal and get a contract and have them sign it because Golden is actually has a shortage of licensed mechanics here. So everybody is grasping for the one that comes in that is newly trained. So when you first come in, everybody wants you. That worked out for us though, because I would go in and have them sign a contract. And they had to abide by the contract by keeping my husband employed. They were all gung-ho for it at first, till they find out that he's not all there. And then they got to carry it through anyways. But the last employer, very last one before our disability awards director man made us go to the back in motion trauma clinic for traumatic brain injuries, did fire him. But they also robbed a whole bunch of his money out of his paycheck. Like, he was actually robbed. So they weren't very nice people to work for anyway. But I noticed that in our case, the Colin Holt and Ina Graham actually lied in some of their letters. Here's one that Colin wrote. This letter is further to my conversation with your wife on September 7th, 07. At that time, she indicated that you had not received a pay raise from $17 to $20 per hour and that your employment with your present employer had been terminated as of September 7th. In order for me to proceed any further with investigating this, I would need the company names and phone numbers of your employers and the name of a contact person with each employer. Please also include the time period you worked for each employer and the reasons for the employment ending. You see, it took Colin a long time to actually realize or actually admit that there was something wrong with Jamie. He kept denying me that fact. But I hung it out there. Because I lived with my husband and I knew there was something wrong. So, on the note of the employees lying in our claims, I'm going to come back and talk about that in chapter 13, or should I say chapter 14, and we'll skip 13 because some of you are probably superstitious. Lightbrite out. Thanks for watching.